Awesome. So thank you, Ramdat. Just mic check 1, 2, make sure everybody could hear me loud and clear. Again, I'm Candace Prince-Modeste. I'm one of the founding board members of the South Queens Women's March, and super excited to be here with you all this evening. So I wanted to go over a few things that folks need to start thinking about, plan for when it comes to the upcoming primary. We always tell folks just before an election to make sure that they have a voting plan. Voting is not something that should be taken lightly. It can be a bit of a process depending on your individual situation and where you are. So we always want to make sure that you have all the tools necessary so that when you go to your polling site or however you decide to cast your vote, that you have all the information necessary. So one part of that, which we just covered, was knowing about ranked choice voting and knowing how to actually fill out our ballots. We want to make sure that we know a little bit more than that. So I guess first thing to figure out is, can you vote? If you are a citizen, you can vote in the upcoming election. If you are registered to vote, if you have registered to vote and you have received communication from the Board of Elections, letting you know that you are registered to vote, and then going a step further to send you information, especially in these last few weeks, regarding where you go to vote, then you are good to go. This upcoming election is a primary. Primaries are the precursor to the general elections in November. And each party, not every party, but most parties, many parties conduct a primary earlier in the year. That is when the members of the actual party, of that individual party, get together to decide is their number one person that they're going to put forth on the ballot in November. So for this upcoming primary, the Democratic Party will be having a primary, the Republican Party will be having a primary, and the Conservative Party will be having a primary. So if you are a registered voter and you are registered in one of those three parties, you will have a primary in the next couple of weeks. Now, if you are a registered voter, but you are not registered to a party, you will not be able to participate in the upcoming primary. In New York State, we have what's called closed primaries. So that means you have to be registered in a particular party in order to participate in the primary. What'll happen is that if you show up to a polling site on this upcoming election day, and the person at the table tells you, oh, well, we see your name here, but we see that you're not affiliated with a particular party. So unfortunately, will not be able to cast your vote. You really shouldn't be there in the first place because you got this information now and you know you shouldn't go there. But even if you do decide to cast a ballot, and you will be given an affidavit ballot, because in New York State, we don't turn voters away. We will still give them the opportunity to actually fill out a ballot. However, that vote will not count, and the Board of Elections will contact you, 5 or 6 weeks later to let you know that your vote did not count and why. Okay, so number one, who can vote? The next thing is, how actually am I going to go about casting my vote? There's a lot of ways to do that. Primary day itself, election day, is June 22nd. That is a Tuesday. And so all of the poll sites will be open on June 22nd from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. A lot of folks like to vote on election day itself, on primary day, usually because their poll site is very close to where they live, so it's convenient for them. So if you choose to cast an in-person ballot on election day, on June 22nd, you would go to that polling site that you normally go to, that's usually very close to your home, and that site will be open between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. As long as you're physically in that building and in that room before 9 p.m., you must be given the opportunity to cast your ballot in person. Now, a couple years back, New York introduced early voting. So we've been using it for a couple of cycles now. And early voting is exactly what it sounds like. You have an extra opportunity to cast your vote ahead of June 22nd. So for this upcoming primary, Early voting runs from Saturday, June 12th through Sunday, June 20th, 12th through the 20th. There are fewer early voting sites. So the early voting sites are usually huge mega sites that accommodate a lot more people because they're covering a lot more neighborhoods. And their hours of operation differ day to day. They'll be the same throughout the city, the hours of operation, but they will differ day to day. So for example, on the weekend, the hours are gonna, and actually they extended the early voting hours this year, probably because of the tons and tons of folks who came out last year. So good job, everybody, for showing up during the last election. So for this upcoming election, for that first day, that first primary day on Saturday the 12th, the sites will be open for about 8 hours. And on the weekends, it'll be 8 hours, and on the weekdays, they'll be open for 10 hours. So a lot more opportunities for you to go out and cast your vote. So please check the Board of Elections website, vote.nyc, to confirm those actual hours, because again, they do differ day to day. Okay, so you can either vote on in person on election day, you can vote in person on primary day. And just also a reminder, if you cast a vote sometime during early voting, you don't need to then go back again on election day and cast your vote. They've already got you, you're in the system, you're logged in as casting your vote, so you are good. If for whatever reason you just don't feel comfortable going to cast your vote in person, or you're not going to be around, you can always elect to apply for and receive an absentee ballot. And what will happen there is that you can request an absentee ballot either by calling the Board of Elections office directly, or going on their website and downloading a form. Or you can actually physically go to the Board of Elections website and, go to the Board of Elections office and get an absentee ballot and get an application, So you'll fill out the application. They will then mail you a ballot to your home. You'll fill out the ballot, and you can either mail it back to the Board of Elections. If you choose to mail it back, that ballot must be postmarked by the 21st of June. So let me backtrack for a bit. You have until the 15th of June to request an absentee ballot. And once you receive it, you have until the 21st to put it in the mail. Now, absentee ballots, they've also extended the way you can utilize them, because obviously more folks have been using them the last year or so. So you can physically take your completed absentee ballot back to a Board of Elections office if you'd like to. So in Queens, we would take it back to the office on Queens Boulevard. You also have the option, if you are like me and you're a procrastinator and it's election day itself and you have not yet mailed in your absentee ballot, you can go to any Board of Elections polling site, and they will have a box there that you can drop off your absentee ballot. So if you feel safer dropping it off to somebody as opposed to putting in the mail, you can always drop it off either during the early voting time frame or on election day itself. So absentee ballots, again, you have to request them by June 15th. If you're mailing it back, it has to be in the mail by the 21st. If you want to drop it off in person, you can drop it off in person to the Queens Board of Elections office, or you can drop it off to any polling site, either during early voting or on election day on the 22nd itself. Okay, so in-person voting on the 22nd, in-person voting for early voting, and then also absentee ballot voting. So lots of opportunities for folks to cast their ballots for this upcoming primary. Just a quick note on the absentee ballot application. When you're filling it out, it's going to ask you, why are you requesting an absentee ballot? The excuse, for lack of a better term, the excuse is going to be for temporary illness due to COVID-19. Okay, no one's going to call you to verify, ask you your vaccination status, anything like that. Those are just the options on the form. And if I'm not mistaken, there's already been legislation put forth and passed to eliminate the need to give a reason why you're requesting an absentee ballot. So moving, I believe probably for starting 2022, if you request an absentee ballot, you'll get the application and there'll be no need to explain why you need an absentee ballot. We talked about checking ahead to make sure. Okay, so we want to also make sure that if you decide to vote in person, that you know where to go. Because this is a hyper local election, it's very important that you cast your ballot where you live for the folks who are covering the area where you live. So think about it this way: if I live in Queens, but on election day I'm hanging out in Brooklyn, and I figure, well, I'm here in Brooklyn, so let me just go to any polling site and vote real quick. I will be able to cast a ballot in Brooklyn, but that vote isn't going to count. And it's not going to count for a few reasons. Number one, I'm not at my assigned polling site. I'm not even in my correct borough. But more importantly, I live in Queens. I live in Southeast Queens. Most of the people who I'm voting for are people who are directly working in Queens and in my neighborhood. If I go to Brooklyn and get a ballot in Brooklyn, it's going to have all these people's names who I don't know, I've never heard of before. They don't work in Queens. They don't live in Queens. They probably don't care about Queens. So you really want to make sure that you are paying attention to the mail when you get information from the Board of Elections, letting you know where your polling sites are so that you go and fill out the ballot. That's going to have the people who are trying to work directly for you in your neighborhood. Now, yes, there are citywide positions that we'll be voting on, but there are also very localized ones. So you really want to make sure that you are getting your ballot for your specific area. If you need to double check where your polling site is, maybe you didn't get your mail or just don't read your mail, you can always go to the Board of Elections website at vote.nyc. You can also utilize findmypollsite.vote.nyc. This is another portion of the Board of Elections website, but when you utilize that site, it'll take you directly to a page where you'll just enter in your address, and it'll bring up your early voting site as well as your election day site, polling site. There you can also preview your ballot, so you can see who are all the folks who will be on your ballot before you actually get to the polling site on the day that you go to vote, or before you receive your absentee ballot. So we know how to figure out how we're going to vote, we know how to look up where our polling site will be. We know that we can preview our ballot, and we know that we have to be registered in a party in order to participate in that party's primary, and we have to go to our assigned polling site to make sure that we're casting a ballot for the people who are representing us in our specific neighborhoods. I know the RCV presentation had covered the positions that'll be on the ballot for ranked choice voting, but also make sure that you know that there will be other non-ranked choice voting positions on the ballot. So the ranked choice voting races will be, as we mentioned before, mayor, public advocate, controller, city council, and borough president. But the non-ranked choice voting races will be, depending on where you are, district leader, judicial convention, delegates, district attorney, and some judges. So there's going to be a lot going on our ballots. I think the last note I'll make is that if you are in the Conservative Party or the Republican Party, your ballots will be a single page, double-sided. But if you are a Democrat, your ballot will be 2 physical pages, double-sided. So I'm going to say that again. Democrats in Queens County, your ballot will be 2 physical pages, double-sided. So we want to make sure that we're going slowly through those ballots to make sure that we're covering all the races and filling out everything that we need to, because it's going to be a bit of an exercise to fill out those ballots this time around. I'll stop there and see if there's anything I missed or any questions